Just after 1 o'clock, and we're going to get started with another edition of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. And before I go around the room, I'll note that Howie Harkema is one of our special guests today. Howie Harkema is, among many things, is the interim executive director at Champion Team, which is a drop-in center, and Howie can tell you more about it. He also he managed the soup kitchen for St. Barnabas, so many other things, and he's going to talk with us to give us an update on how our homeless neighbors are doing, how we can help them, how things like vaccines are going in their community. So welcome and thank you very much for joining us. We also have with us today Mayor Linda Watkins from the city of Carlton. We have Councilor Stephanie Finley, who might be the council president. I don't know, apologies. Okay, so Council President, the City of Newburgh. We have the City of Amity with us, who I believe is Mike Thomas. We've never met, so that's my fault. Never met in person, I should say. We've got Takesha Wydrow from the Sheridan Revitalization Committee, and she actually says Sheridan Chamber on her screen, too. We have Heather Miller of Loco Flow Health Bar, but also the president of the McMinnville Downtown Association. All right, nailed it. Apologies, I'm distracted by the fact there are other people that need to let in to this meeting today. But thank you all for joining us. And what I'd love to start with is have Howie Harkema kind of give us an update on what Champion Teams is doing these days, how we can help our homeless neighbors, and what's next. Thank you, Howie.
Well, thank you for the invite, Casey Kula, very much. So Champion Team began back in 2000. It was a small nonprofit. We've been able to go in there since August 28th and remedy a number of things, including mental health, peer support. But above and beyond that, we assist with stimulus assistance, so that anybody that comes through the door that wants to get their stimulus check or their little debit card can work with our office manager and get that taken care of. We also do tax assistance. So if somebody's wanting to get their taxes done, they can come in and have their taxes done and work with them. And we do court assistance. We also go out into McMinnville and find some of the people that have court dates, and then make sure that they make it to Champion Team at the right time so they can do their court date over the phone with one of our peer-to-peer support specialists who assist in that way as well. We also do clothing. On a daily basis, we have a clothing closet in our basement, and so our homeless population, those being let out of prison or jail, those that are mental health patients, and or those that have addictive behaviors and seeking recovery, come in on a daily basis and switch out their clothing. And so we have a big enough clothing closet to make that happen. We also offer tents, tarps, water, sleeping bags, blankets, food to go. We also have on a daily basis at Champion Team a breakfast and a dinner every day and snacks in between. We have a social room with a cable TV set up so people can sit and watch TV and socialize. We have a computer room that they can utilize to look up jobs or other things that they might need. We have the gas voucher program, which assists people who don't have enough gasoline to get gasoline and go to their appointments on time. We have the safe overnight camping program. We have 3 locations right now. We're working on a 4th. At each place, we can have up to 3 RVs or 3 vehicles. And some of the RVs have entire families in them. We also do intakes for people that are needing vetted into YCAP's moteling program. So we make suggestions to YCAP as to our street people that truly do need a place to be and their circumstances, and we work with YCAP to get them into the moteling program.
Well, thank you, Howie, for that overview. Now that people who are experiencing homelessness are eligible for the vaccine, is there a plan to direct folks to a site to get vaccinated?
Yes. To begin with, my staff and the volunteers, I have 9 people signed up all to get their first COVID vaccine. If it's Johnson & Johnson, they only have to get 1. If it's not, then they'll have to get 2. We're also taking intakes for people at Champion Team that are coming to be our clients to get set up with the vaccination program through HHS, Public Health, other facilities, Virginia Garcia. So whatever their need is with that vaccine, they can sign up through us to get it done.
Great. Okay, my next question for you, Howie. Oh, wait, Abhisha has a question, and then I'll ask mine.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, Howie. It's really nice to get an update about Champion Team. I'm not that educated about Champion Team, so learning more is really helpful. And I'm curious what region or what area you serve. Is it the city of McMinnville? Is it Yamhill County? Can you help me understand that a little further?
Sure. Even though we reside in McMinnville, we have people that come in from Sheridan, Willamina, Amity, Newburgh, all over Yamhill County and pretty much Yamhill Valley. So it's not just a McMinnville facility, even though we reside there. We see 50 to 70 people a day.
All right, great. And then my question for you then, follow-up question to that is, what's the future of Champion Team?
The board of directors of Champion Team has decided that we're going to close our doors and dissolve the 501c3 on April 30th of 2021. We were able to stay open through the entire winter by fundraising after our HHS contract was taken away from us. That was in November. So we raised just under $68,000 over the winter to stay afloat, to keep people safe, of having a place to be through the winter and cold months. And now that we are at that point where we needed to decide on the lease and a number of other things, we have decided that April 30th will be our last day, but there's another nonprofit called Encompass Yamhill Valley that will shortly be taking its place as soon as possible.
Okay, so thank you, Howie. And Joya has a question. And I want to also, apologies, I'm trying to remember. So Abhisha Stone from SEDCOR just joined us a few minutes ago. Joya Goodwin from McMinnville Chamber just joined us. And then Director Lindsey Manfrin from County HHS, Health and Human Services, also just joined us. So welcome. Joya, you had a question.
Thank you, I do. Howie, it's good to see you. I'm happy to hear, I'm sorry to hear about Champion Team, but I'm happy to hear that you've got another not-for-profit, because my question was going to be, what happens to those 50 to 70 people per day that you were seeing now that Champion Team is gone? But it sounds like you've got something happening. So
yes, so we're working very hard to find a building and property to be on for our advocacy center, which is phase 1 of it, Encompass Yamhill Valley, which will be pretty much a mirror of what we're doing at Champion Team, but with less baggage. Champion Team's reputation was not good. When I got in there, I tried to save it for about 3.5 months. And after 3.5 months, we just found that we could not save it. And so we're very grateful that all of our paperwork with the IRS and Encompass Yamhill Valley is totally done. We're ready to go. So we're just putting all of that together.
And Joy has a follow-up question.
Yes.
Thank you, Howie. So donations, are you looking for donations, clothing, food, or those kinds of things?
We don't need more clothing. We don't need more food. Five Rock Ranch brings us about 30 to 50 cases of food every Friday.
Wow.
And what we've been doing is we have the overabundance. So we freeze and keep what we can. And anything beyond that, we put out a Facebook posting on about 20 different Facebook sites. And people come in and get the free boxes of food just like you would at Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, et cetera, et cetera. And they can do it over the weekends even.
Great. Thank you, Howie. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you, Joya.
Great. Thank you, Joya. Other questions for Howie? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Howie. Oh, Linda, Mayor Watkins has unmuted herself. So
yeah, I missed part of that because I was running down a barking dog. But I just wanted to say, Howie, thank you so much for what you're doing. And I look forward to Thursday. I'm assuming we'll learn more about Encompass Yamhill at that time.
Yes, you will.
Great. Thank you so much.
And what Linda is talking about is I've invited all of the mayors plus 2 city council presidents to do a Zoom with me on homelessness on a monthly basis so that we can all be proactive rather than reactive and figure out what we're going to do in the future. Casey and I have a good friend named Jimmy Jones who gave us a important meeting about a year and 3 months ago now. And at that point, he thought that our numbers would double in every community and county in 10 years. But then COVID happened, and also the wildfires, and then the ice storms, and people got laid off. So those numbers are going to more than double over the next 10 years now. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be prepared for what's coming. And that's why these meetings are set up.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Howie, for doing that work and for being proactive about it. I do recall that Joya was represented the McMinnville Chamber a couple of times, pushing back on in a more reactive, like, okay, we need to work on homelessness issues, and I really think that with Howie's work with mayors, we can get to a spot where that's really not necessary. So,
yeah,
looking at all of you on this one, yeah. All right. Well, Howie, his email information is in the ridiculously long email list, so if you have to go, remember, you can get a hold of Howie that way. And then Takesha Wydrow also has a comment or question for you.
Yeah, hi, Howie. I was just wondering, is Mayor Cooley from Sheridan invited to that?
Every mayor was invited. I have not received a response from Mayor Cooley.
Okay, thanks.
Takesha, you can do the elbow nudge. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments for Howie? And thank you for this, all of your work on these issues over the years.
It's my pleasure.
All right, great. And then we have with us 2 other people who just joined. Representative David Gomberg, who is a very regular attendee, but because of the long session, it's been harder for him to join us. And we also have Omar Sandoval, who's the legislative director for Rep. Ricky Ruiz, who's from Gresham area, but Omar is one of our own, as it were. So I invited him to join us just in case all of the elected officials in the legislature were in a floor session right now. But before I go to them, I just want to make sure, I would love to hear any updates from Director Manfrin, because her schedule is often very tight. So Director Manfrin, do you have a moment to share with us kind of the dynamics around COVID infections in the county, vaccine issues, and kind of what you really want the leaders here to send out into the community in terms of information?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, and thanks everyone. So we are in a space where we were able to move to the lower risk category, which is a wonderful thing. We are monitoring things closely. We have seen a small uptick in cases over the course of the last week. Nothing incredibly substantial, but noteworthy, and definitely we're watching it. The good news is that our positivity rate has remained quite low. Our threshold that we begin to worry is around 5%, and we've been under 3, and we remain under 3 currently, which is great. So I think we're about 2.7 right now, and that's a good indicator to let us know. It gives us a good sense of what community spread might look like, and it also is a number that really helps us understand if we have enough tests happening. Because one of the things that we have noticed is there's fewer tests happening currently, and some folks are wondering why the county stopped doing our weekly testing events, and the reason was that the demand was so low that the amount of work to set something up like that, to have 7 or so folks get tested, it wasn't worth it. There wasn't a payoff there, and instead we've just made sure that there are availability of tests for people who are either contacts or have symptoms. If they're not able to reach their healthcare provider, we do have other avenues to help support them to ensure that they can get testing. So there is still access. It just looks a little different now. But with that decreased testing happening, we just want to be assured that it's because there's a less need for testing and not an access piece. And we're feeling good right now that it is that there's less need for testing. But again, we're going to keep watching our positivity rate and other data points just to make sure that those are going well. We will see what happens over the course of the next week, and that will determine any modifications or just sort of closer attention that we might get from the governor's office related to what our cases and numbers look like next week. So we'll all be watching that closely. We continue to vaccinate folks as quickly as we possibly can, as quickly as we're getting vaccine. Our vaccine arrives to us on Mondays, Tuesdays, or Wednesdays. We don't know until it arrives at our door what day it will be here. But generally speaking, that vaccine is used most of the time it's used that Thursday or Friday, and sometimes always used within a calendar week of receiving it. There have been some, strategies that we've been employing around our vaccine distribution. We know that sort of what gets in the press and what's talked about a lot are the large throughput events where we can push through, hundreds and thousands of folks in one day, which are fantastic, and it's a key piece of the vaccine distribution plan, and we will maintain those sites. We'll maintain one in McMinnville. We'll maintain one in Newburgh. And then we're working to understand what the tribe's ongoing plans are for the West Valley to assure that there's continued access there. But that's one component of the plan, right? And the way that we're thinking about it is we're likely going to be distributing about 40% of our vaccines through that model. And then the remaining, kind of portions of that will be divided up into a couple of categories. One is sort of those direct resources for people, pharmacies, healthcare providers, those places where people can directly go, that are patients or clients of those facilities and can get access to vaccine there. And then we're reserving really between 16 and 20% of our vaccine for couple of things, either mobile efforts where we're going out into the community, or we're providing vaccine for partners to go out into the community and provide vaccines on locations, and to really work to make sure that we have reservation of vaccines for some of our harder to reach populations, or populations that we really just want to be very mindful of how we approach and who we're working with and how we're doing that. So I'll share just a couple of examples. Some of the mobile clinics that we were out at Carlton Meatpacking, we were so grateful for them for hosting us. Multiple, I think there were about 250 folks that were vaccinated yesterday on site there. It was their employees, and they were very generous and opened it up to a number of our vineyard management groups who employ people who work in the vineyards. And so it was a combination of those organizations that were on site, and it was fantastic. So we will continue to do events like that. We are reaching out. We have a pretty comprehensive list of agricultural and food processing facilities within Yamhill County, and we're working our way through the list, calling each of them, asking if they are interested in having something on site, or if not, how do we work with your employees to make sure that they can get access to vaccine, and doing that with all of those facilities. And as you can imagine, some of them have several hundred employees, and some of them have 5 employees, and so how we work with them might look a little bit different just depending on the size of the organization. We're working really closely with Unidos. Again, an amazing amazing group being led by Miriam, and they have been instrumental in working with us. We reserve a certain number of our vaccine appointment slots each week for UNIDOs to schedule people directly. So they have access to our scheduling system, and they are able to go out into the community, and they are able to connect directly with individuals and get them scheduled into appointments. It's really working well. That allows people to not have to do that extra step, especially folks that may have a lack of access to internet or various things. And so that's been fantastic. We've also gone on site to a number of older adult communities and manufactured complexes and things like that. We've worked with Providence, who has also sent mobile teams out to be vaccinating in those types of areas, as well as Providence deploying their team to do in-home vaccines for those folks that are not able to reach a vaccine event, or going to a healthcare provider is even really challenging. And so we're really trying to use a diverse number of strategies to reach as many people as possible. And again, thinking that we've got a lot of vaccine that we'll be pushing out through these large events, but we are hanging on to a small percentage each week to make sure that we always reserve vaccine for those hard to reach populations, or for those folks that need us to come to them versus them come to us. And so, that strategy, I mentioned some percentages, is really the percentages that we're using and how we imagine continuing to do that as we see more and more vaccine coming. I will say this last week, we saw more vaccine than we've seen before, which was really exciting. And we are anticipating, although I always get anxious when I put anything out because I don't know for sure what will happen until I actually see those doses in my hand. But we are anticipating seeing a fairly significant influx of vaccine next week as well. We're waiting for confirmation on that. We should find out Thursday or Friday of this week of what that will look like. But we, as you can imagine, are preparing for having it because we want to be ready for it. We do have, as we've looked through and worked with all of our community partners like Providence and Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, our healthcare providers, our pharmacies, when we have worked with all of them to understand what every individual clinic and pharmacy and large throughput, what the capacity is in terms of doses, we believe that we can accommodate just a little over 11,000 doses per week. So that includes first and second doses, because when we're thinking of mass, overall capacity, we've got to take into account that. Now that will shift and change as we see what we anticipate, which is more and more of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, where all of those doses could theoretically be, first doses versus the Moderna and Pfizer, where we're still managing the first and second. So that's the good news. We've got a significant capacity, and we don't think that we'll get quite that many vaccines, but we are hoping that we will be seeing roughly around 8,000 doses being administered, first and second doses per week within Yamhill County through all those different mechanisms that I just mentioned. So those are sort of some of my big updates. I am happy to take any questions if there are any questions.
I bet there will be some questions, Director. Thank you. But first, the scan of the room. Questions. Okay, Joya, that's good because otherwise I just ask them all.
I always have a question, you know that. Lindsey, it's good to see you. Thank you so much, honestly, for everything you're doing. I know this has been a huge lift for you and your staff and all the volunteers and everything else that you're doing. So question, frontline workers. Yep. Now that's defined like retail, right? What about people that work in, I don't know, chambers of commerce, visitor centers, and things like that? Because we got tourists coming to town now and, coming in our door and that kind of stuff. So where are we with that?
So great question. So anyone that's included in that group 7, right, becomes eligible on April 5th. So it got bumped up, and we feel prepared for that. Of course, how fast we can get folks vaccinated is 100% dependent on how many doses we're getting, obviously. But we will be getting those out as quickly as possible. In similar to how we are approaching agricultural facilities or shelters or different large organizations, we are looking for large employers that fit that frontline definition and have the capabilities of doing some mobile for those types of facilities as well. For those places or people that fit in any of those categories, and quite frankly, for anyone at this point who is interested in getting vaccinated who hasn't, we really are encouraging them to register with the Get Vaccinated Oregon tool. If you go in there and you're not in group 6 or a previous group, so group 7 or the general population that becomes eligible May 1st, it will tell you you're not eligible, but it saves all of your information. And what we are, so your information stays in there. And once you become eligible, you'll begin receiving any messages. The way that we are actually using that tool is a little bit different right now. It may change, as you've noticed, our process for vaccine registration and those types of things have changed over time because the population that we're vaccinating has changed, right? It's very different to be working with educators where we know where they all are. They're all in the school. We can find them. Their process looks different than, say, 65 and older, where we really have to employ different strategies, which is different than what we really are getting to now, which feels like the vast majority of our population. So our process will continue to morph and change as those things change. But by registering with that tool right now, you'll be on that list. You'll have that, you'll be getting any notifications, which is helpful. But the way that we're using it currently is we are downloading and essentially getting all of that information, that registration information from the Oregon Health Authority. And we're able to filter based on eligibility and those types of things. And then we are doing 2 ways of scheduling. I mentioned having some partners like Unidos who are directly scheduling for us. But in addition to that, we are calling individuals and we are emailing individuals. And we have different strategies. And I know sometimes that can be confusing, but really it's because we have different tools at our disposal. So when we work with certain partners to do those large events, we're able to use a tool that we can share a link that can't be further shared out. So it's just good for the one person who's registered. And so for those individuals where they've indicated through the Get Vaccinated Oregon tool that email is their preference, that's what we're going to do. We're working to do that. And then we have people that either they don't have an email address, and so we're calling them, or they may be getting scheduled for a link that we can't as easily share out without it getting sort of shared through social media and other things, which we try to avoid. So we'll be calling and putting people into those. So there's a couple of reasons why there might be a couple of different strategies you see being used by us. When we get to a point where the general population is eligible and we have a large amount of vaccine, right, I think that the process will be even easier, where you will see a list of links on our website that you can go to and you can just schedule yourself. We will get there someday. We're not there now. We're not there now because right now we have to manage to eligibility and we have to manage to the number of doses we're getting. But as both of those things relax and open up, those processes will be easier as well.
Awesome. Great. Your answer to Joya's question answered my first question, which is what is the now process for applying or registering for the vaccine? So, and I know that Director Manfrin was very helpful to me this last week when people were coming to me going, it says I'm not eligible. And so we had to do the education first of me and then the education of other people to just stick with it because they'll get a hold of you. Yeah, so thank you for that. Another question I have for Director Manfrin, I'm scanning the room here, but I'm going to go for it, is how can the people here on the call and then people in the community help with the vaccination efforts?
Sure.
Or should we just get out of your way?
I think there's a couple of things. Certainly, as we do more and more, any volunteers are great, and folks can email covid@co.yamhill.or.us to volunteer, and that's great. We have a fabulous volunteer base, and that's always helpful. I think the other 2 things that I would say are please subscribe to our newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter that we send out that we really try to get information about any of the frequently asked questions that we're getting from our call center, anything that we are anticipating changing, any new information. We're really putting it out through there. And I think it's important for 2 reasons. One, for the people reading the newsletter, right, to get that information and have it, but then for you to share that information with others, especially those others who may not have access to the newsletter. They may not have access to email, but you can help carry that message to them. So I think that is really, really critical so that we can get accurate information out to as many people as we possibly can. So I think that's important. And I think that the third thing really is patience and grace. I think we've got a team who is working extraordinary hours and an extraordinary pace. Public health, we've been running a marathon or a sprint really for a marathon's length of time. And they're doing a tremendous amount of work, and they're doing a really great job. And so just knowing that there are just some things we can't solve, right? We can't bring more vaccine in as much as we'd like to. And helping share with folks that, there is a method to this. There are pieces that are very coordinated behind the scenes. And if you're hearing or seeing things that don't feel that way to you, please always know that you can reach out to me, because it means two things. One, there might be something that we need to tweak and fix, and I want to be able to do that. And it might be that there's not anything that we need to change, but for whatever reason, that message isn't very clear, and we need to change our messaging, and we need to employ different strategies around there. So it's really that twofold. Please be patient and let me know. Reach out if something doesn't feel like it's working well.
Great, thank you, Director. And then Howie has a question for you.
Director Manfrin, how do we diminish the fear factor of these vaccinations? The population, as you know, that I work with have great fear over all of this. And I'd like to get a lot more people signed up.
Yeah. Oh, Howie, that is such a great question. I think there's a couple of strategies. One is doing our best to get accurate information out in ways that is digestible and easy to understand and really targeted at what those concerns might be. I think that's one, and I can certainly try to help. And I wonder too, Howie, if we can have a conversation offline of how we can really think about that for the specific population that you work with. I think the other one is sort of setting examples, for folks that trust you, Howie, or trust other people, really being that leader and letting folks know, why you're getting vaccinated. I was so excited. So my dad was finally eligible for vaccine and was able to get vaccinated. And he's probably gonna hate that I'm doing this. He is, he
watches, don't you know?
He was nervous, but he said, you know what? I'm doing this one because I trust my daughter, which I appreciate, but also I want to hug my grandkids, and I haven't for over a year, and that's really hard. So that was his reason, right? And I think sharing those personal reasons is important. I got vaccinated because I want to keep our community open. I got vaccinated because I wanted to hug my grandkids. We all have our own reasons, and I think getting those reasons into our community by people like all of you who are respected leaders is really critical and really important.
Well, I had my first one a month ago, and I get my second one on April 8th. And I've been very clear with all of our clients and staff that you need to do this because it's going to save people's lives if you do. And there still isn't a lot of, they're not impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's maybe connect offline and see if there's some things that we can problem solve together.
Great.
Like that.
And then Director Manfrin, along those lines of like the benefits to the community and the person with the vaccine and kind of helping people be more comfortable with it. I saw the CDC release the MMWR report about the effectiveness in like real world settings. Have you had time to look at that? And do you want to weigh in or share your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I have not been able to read the whole thing, although I have skimmed it. And I will say some of the things that we are seeing are dramatic decreases in places like long-term care facilities and correctional institutions, which tells us something, right? I mean, those are high-risk settings where we have seen an incredibly significant number of outbreaks and spread. And the fact that it is now feeling contained is a huge win, especially for some populations that you can have such dramatic and negative consequences of getting COVID vaccine. So I think we're really beginning to see that these vaccines not only work in the clinical trials and in the labs, but they're really working in the real world too.
Right. I know that. Thank you. I know that for me, one of the exciting takeaways from reading their interim report that they released yesterday was just seeing that, or the day before, whatever, was seeing that with weekly COVID tests across almost 4,000 people, they were able to see a dramatic decrease in even symptomless or asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic cases, which is really exciting. Because for me, I was like, well, clearly it protects the person, but is it protecting the community as well?
Yeah.
And then it looks like Julia is putting a number of resources into the chat from the CDC about the effectiveness and safety and how they work. So thank you. Be sure to check those. Mayor Watkins has unmuted herself.
Yeah, more comment once again rather than question, but I wanted to share with Lindsey. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the outreach that the county did for homebound people, because that same weekend that you guys were doing that, my brother lives in a rural county down in California, and they were having, and he's homebound, and they were just having a horrible time getting his vaccine. They were doing a vaccine clinic like half a block away from his house, and one of his caregivers was just frantically trying to get the doctors, somebody over to give him a shot, and they had to go through they had to actually call his doctor, his primary caregiver, and get him to do the referral to get the vaccination. So for what the county was doing right at that time, because I know there were a number of people in our area that were getting vaccinated just by calling in to one single number. So it was really, I was really impressed, and it's kind of interesting to see the juxtaposition. Yeah, anyway, thanks.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. There's a lot of people who've reached out to me and said, oh my goodness, my daughter or my son or my father, they're homebound, and we had Providence nurses show up. So thank you for coordinating that. It's even when we don't know what's happening beforehand, when we see it happening and hear about it, it's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
And I want to put a plug in for the weekly vaccine newsletter kind of update that public health releases, is that it really has all of the information in it. With if you need to have more information, there's even a link for it quite often. So it is very, very it's complete, I feel like.
Thank you. And I will say we have it in English and Spanish, so every week it gets released in both languages.
Great. Are there other questions for Director Manfrin? Oh, right. We even have somebody from we lost Representative Gomberg, but we do have Omar from the legislature here. Omar, from the legislative perspective, do you have any questions or comments for Director Manfrin? I'm putting him on the spot now.
Commissioner, thank you so much. I know no questions from my end, but I'm happy to answer any if folks have some from the Oregon legislature right over there.
Beautiful.
Right? It's a beautiful day. So I'm out in between meetings right now. Out enjoying the blossoms.
If there aren't other questions or comments for Director Manfrin, then I would invite Omar to give us an update on what's happening in the legislature right now. What are the plans for spending American Rescue Plan dollars that are coming directly to the state? And why is it so beautiful there?
Yeah, it's always a beautiful day when legislators are in the Capitol, and I think that the weather just gets really nice when there's quorum and business is actually being done here. So hey everybody, Omar Sandoval. I use he and his pronouns. I'm the legislative director, chief of staff to Representative Ruiz, and I also serve Yamhill County through the Yamhill County Dems. In my capacity as the legislative director to Representative Ruiz, yes, we have some really big investments coming from the federal administration. I call them the Biden bucks. It's around $2.6 billion that have been allocated solely for Oregon. Of those, 680 million have been allocated solely for economic development and essentially prosperity, economic prosperity. And one of the cool things that the House members have the opportunity to, and I'm bummed that Representative Gombrich isn't on here, but we essentially get unlimited funding asks to request some of those 700 and either 10 or 780 million dollars. Among those in our office, we have requested funding for school-based health centers, for statewide broadband access. So I would encourage folks, and I'm joined through my phone, so I don't know if I see any other legislators on here, but I would encourage y'all to reach out to us, to me, to your legislators, and make sure that they are taking advantage of that and requesting that funding, because it's a lot of money that can go to Yamhill County. The only criteria that it needs is it has to be to promote economic prosperity in the community, which one can make the case with a lot of things. In terms of the legislative process, so yes, we are in the full swing of things. I think we are 2 or 3 months in, so just about halfway. Most bills that are alive right now have gone through essentially 3 deadlines. So the deadline to be drafted, the legislative concept, the deadline to be heard and be posted for a work session, and the final one that's coming up in I believe the second week of April is bills need to leave the policy committee by the first or second week of April. So within the next couple of days, we should have a clearer idea of the 4,500 bills that are still alive right now, which ones will get funded, which ones will be passed, and some that I would say, keep an eye out for are Senate Bill 554, which is being heard right now. It's one that would essentially ban weapons in school districts, in the Capitol, places like that. So Senate Bill 554. One that Representative Ruiz is pushing forward, and Commissioner Kula, I have to put this plug in. House Bill 3294, which is the Menstrual Dignity Act, which would put Oregon on par with 3 other states, although this would be the most inclusive policy. It would direct all public institutions of education to provide free menstrual products to students at no cost. We know that this has been something that has been affecting our menstruating students a lot, and so we're hoping to be a leader in this and set an example for other states as well. Like I said, there's like 4,500 policies. So if there are any specifics, I'm happy to answer them. If y'all have a question that I can't answer, I'll look into it and get back to y'all by the end of today as well.
Great, and thank you, Omar. And it looks like Joya has a question to begin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Omar. Nice to see you. So I heard that the Senate passed SB 846A, which basically is the kicker for income tax refunds. And I wondered if it's in the House and where that's going, because it's $108 million. Now, these are just numbers I've seen. I'd like to understand the reasoning, the rationale behind doing that, because that money belongs to Oregonians, and yet why is the state of the legislature taking it back, number one, and secondly, wow, can they do that? More importantly, can they really do that? And why? What's the rationale? We're getting all this money from the Fed. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly, sorry, because we've got people who are unemployed. We've got businesses who are struggling. We've got people who are homeless and becoming newly homeless. And the state is taking away the kicker? I would like to understand. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent question, and I'm glad that you asked that. The kicker is something that has been very polarizing for a lot of folks. I think some folks are in favor of having the Oregon legislature take some. I think we can all be. We all love the kicker, right? Who doesn't love getting extra money from the state? Now, the reasoning behind, in my understanding, as to why some of the kickers being pulled from going back to Oregonians is this: Oregon, as well as a couple other states, is unique in the fact that it cannot go into debt. And so Oregon's economists need to, on odd years such as 2021, they need to essentially take a guess as to what the economy will be like for these next 2 years, how much revenue we're getting. And off of that, Oregon, the Joint Ways and Means chairs and the governor set the budget off of that. Now, when we overestimate and we spend more than we have, as you saw in 2020, we need to go into a special session. So we go into special session. We need to correct our bills, correct the budget. You saw that in June of 2020 when, along with the police reform bills, there were, and don't quote me on the number, but I think over $20 million in cuts. Now, so that goes into where we can't go into debt. Now, and I say it's in between a rock and a hard place. The hard spot is that whatever money we don't take into account has to go back to the Oregon taxpayer. So it's fantastic in the sense that we increase accountability, we increase transparency, and we all get some funding, right? The Oregon legislature's reasoning, or what I have been hearing behind taking some of that kicker is two things. Number one, we want to be prepared for another potential recession, right? We want to make sure that we have some funding that's in that rainy day fund in case it needs to be pulled and used for whatever that may be. And the second reasoning is that it's the kicker, as fantastic as it is, it's inequitable. And inequitable meaning that you and I think most Oregonians, 90% of Oregonians, if I'm not mistaken, receive anywhere from $120 to $300, $400 in back from the kicker. There is that, and not to sound like Bernie, but there is that small percentage that receive over $14,000 a year in kicker money. And so that, it's to those folks that, the conversation on taking, some of that kicker, because as you said, I mean, most working class folks, most people, that is a lot of money. It's, for a lot of families, $20 in a month will make all the difference. But we need to see how it can be distributed equitably so that it's for the folks who need it, they receive it. But folks who are getting thousands and thousands of dollars, where that's essentially just a drop in the bucket for them. We're trying to see what options exist.
Thank you for that response. I look forward to hearing further about it as we move on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to do some more research and look into what committees it is. So if I heard right, it's Senate Bill 874?
It's SB 846-A. So it would be 846 amended. Yep.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yes, I will look into that.
And then it looked like Abisha Stone had a question as well. And thanks, Omar.
Yeah, hi, Omar. Thank you for joining us. I know that we haven't met. I'm Abisha. I'm the Yamhill County Economic Development Manager for SEDCOR. We serve Marion, Polk, and Yamhill County, providing economic development support. And I've been trying to track, right, all of the potential avenues that we might be receiving funding for economic prosperity, economic recovery, and also trying to make sure that I'm staying on top of how do we make sure that we provide input as those funding streams are being developed out, and how do we make sure that we're active participants so that we're not reacting to or responding to decisions that were made without us. So I was hearing you talk about, reaching out to your legislators and making sure that we're having a voice there. I've also seen Business Oregon, our state economic development department, putting out RFIs in regards to projects around broadband and things like that. We've been working with our regional representative from the EDA, who's also asking for us to start staging projects. And I'm curious, the approach, what you already know, right? What is the approach that our legislators will be taking to make sure that they're engaging our communities and our business partners as they are developing these approaches to the funding? And in as much, at the same time, I'm asking you that question. So how is that being planned to be done? I also would like to offer SEDCOR as a resource, as a conduit to the business and industry partners, and make sure that we can get folks at the table for you if you're so inclined.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the only way to have inclusive policies is by having the community involved, and frankly, without obviously, there's differences in the legislators and how they envision community involvement. But I'll say this: Representative Ruiz has been sending mass emails in his district and encouraging folks even outside of the district to meet with him, meet with myself, meet with Amanda, another staffer in our office, and really share what they believe would be the best way to spend those dollars. And I would highly suggest, and if I don't want to assume, but I'm hearing that there is at least some disconnect, and I would love to see how our office can collaborate with our other Yamhill County, our other community legislators, and see how we can involve folks, because y'all are the ones that are on the ground doing things. Legislators, they're in Salem right now. They don't know what's going on in Yamhill County, and so it's imperative. It's important to have that input, and that could be through a community roundtable such as these, right? But I think yes, we should absolutely talk and see how we can get some of those proposals, especially with the fact that we have an unlimited number of asks. We should be taking advantage of it and putting in as many requests for funding as we can. And I hope that answered the question. I'm happy to elaborate or
Yeah, I know it's not, I do appreciate your response, Omar, and I know it's not an easy question to answer because, as you mentioned, there's many legislators and various different approaches. I just want to make sure that this conversational topic is opened, and that to offer our support, SEDCOR support as a resource. We also recently hosted, Yamhill County has an Economic Development Advisory Council that's comprised of a representative from each one of the 10 incorporated communities, and also our traded sector industry partners from each of the largest employing traded sector industries in Yamhill County. And they came together and put together a list of recommendations for areas of support for economic recovery and growing prosperity. And so we do have some of that work that's already been going on. We also have access directly to these business partners. And I want to make sure that we don't look back in 6, 9, 12 months from now and regret an opportunity to share what the information is about the known needs. So I just want to keep, as we stumble through how to have this conversation, I would rather stumble through it than not have it at all. So I appreciate your response, and I will start reaching out as well. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I will drop my cell phone number, my personal email on the chat in just a sec as well. Please include me in all correspondence. the sad thing for the American Rescue dollars, we only have now it's 4 days to submit those proposals. They're being requested by Friday, end of day Friday. So let's talk with maybe not today, but let's find some time between today and Friday to make sure that we're getting that and fleshing out as many proposals as we can.
Thank you, Omar. Oh. And Abisha, I just sent Rep. Noble and you an email so that we can do this within this district-county combination too. Just get that party started, even though it's a really short time frame, which actually we've been seeing is everything's a short time frame right now. And Howie Harkema has a question or comment.
Omar, House Bill 4212-3, which would allow big money to come into Yamhill County, and maybe just McMinnville, we're unsure at this point, for a navigation center for the homeless and also for low barrier sheltering systems. Why is it not even coming up until September of 2022?
Yes, that is an excellent question, Howie, and I'm so glad that you asked that. So I know we've been talking about funding. 'Tis the season for money and project proposals. So as I mentioned, the state of Oregon cannot go into debt, and part of that is anticipating how much money we will have for the next 2 years. And off of that, a lot of projects are being there's a lot of funding requests for those, and especially those that come through the state. They go through a process from the time that it passes and the governor signs it. There's a time period, sometimes up to 3 months, and I think that might be it this time around. That it's just dedicated to rulemaking. So state agency rulemaking. The state agencies are going through that with their lawyers, with the authors of the bills, with legislative fiscal office, with our county commissioners and municipalities, and saying, hey, this is how the bill reads. How will this impact and affect our communities? Now, I think you mentioned the funding would come in 2022. That plays into the general fund asks, lottery funds. Again, because the state cannot go into debt, a lot of that money will come in a year or two after, once the biennium is ending, or we have a little bit more of a solid idea as to how much money goes in. So I'll use, again, 2020 as an example, because the way the revenue forecasts pre-pandemic were coming, we were anticipating a lot, just a bunch of money coming in. That obviously didn't happen due to businesses being shut down, due to a lot of folks not working, and so had that money gone out when in 2019, when we were writing the budgets, it would have caused some great negative implications in Oregon by essentially spending more money than we had. So that slow release of funding ensures that we are keeping that debit card at zero or above zero.
I have another question also.
Yeah.
This has to do with mental health services.
Absolutely.
I hear that Oregon is considering redoing their mental health to model after the CAHOOTS mental health system. Do you have any information on that?
I do not. I know that there are a lot of mental health conversations going on, and if there's a specific bill number, I'm happy to look into it. If not, my former boss, I know, is running a mental health task force, and I'd be happy. They're all in there, so I'd be happy to go into their office and see if she can provide me with some information on it.
I'd love to reach out to them, Omar. I'd love to reach out to them.
And it looks like Director Manfrin may have more information about that too.
I have a little bit. Admittedly, I don't remember the bill number off the top of my head, but I can say that there was a bill introduced to look at implementation of cahoots statewide. There's a lot of, I would say, feedback around the bill as it exists now, which is how it happens with every bill, right? But the Association of Oregon Mental Health and Community Mental Health Programs, AOCMHP, has provided some significant amount of feedback, and that's a group made up of local community mental health programs such as HHS. And part of it is looking at, some of the dollar points that it's specifying around implementation don't really look like they're accurate, and that there needs to be taken into account this larger system that goes into staffing a person with an EMS provider. And so we're really hoping that there'll be some reflection on that and some consideration of what actual costs would be, as well as consideration of looking at how an exact cahoots model may not be the right fit in every community, and that really what we're looking for is the ability to in some areas provide mobile crisis, and then in other areas like Yamhill County, enhance and expand mobile crisis. And so wanting to have some flexibility in being able to do what's right with our community versus kind of being pigeonholed, if you will, into one specific model that may or may not be the best fit. And, as within Yamhill County, I would say that what we would hope to see happen is, like many things, go through a community process and get feedback, of course, from people like you, Howie, and from other really strategic partners of what will be best in Yamhill County. Where are we hitting the mark, and where are we missing, and what do we need to fill those gaps?
Then Howie has a follow-up. It looks like, thank you, Director.
Lindsey, I know that it's going to be unique for every county to begin with, this new cahoots type model, and it may not work everywhere, but it's a good starting point because what's out there today isn't working. And so we've got to be very aware that a lot of our people that are on the streets are there for a reason. And with all of the Damish and other facilities having been closed years ago now, we're seeing the offset of that here in 2021 on our streets on a daily. So.
Right, so there's clearly a need, and I really appreciate hearing. I mean, I'm excited about the potential of it, and so I'm glad to hear that Director Manfrin is like, we can enhance the services we have with something like this, as long as it actually fits and allows us to do that. Yeah. All right, it is after 2:00, and we have lots of other people here that I would love to make sure that they get to share with the community and with us. So raise your hand if you just have to go within the next couple of minutes. Director Manfrin, you have totally rocked it. Please, tell the world thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
It's good to see you today.
Too.
Okay, well then I'm going to do our actual roundtable. Thank you, Omar, for joining us as well, and feel free to stick around. But what I'm going to do is we have Council President Stephanie Finley from Newburgh with us. What would you like to share with people?
Thank you. I'm going to make it super, super quick. So we have a couple of things going on right now. It's sort of quietly passed that we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary with our new city manager, Dan Weinheimer. And so we have had a very successful year with him on and are excited to go into year 2, hopefully with less COVID, so that he actually gets to spend some time in the community and meeting community members. But we've been very pleased with his leadership, and we're excited to thank him for a year of service. We are going into budget season. So budget kicks off coming up in the next couple of weeks. And as you all know, this is going to be a particularly trying year for budgets. So if you know anybody who has input for what the city of Newburgh's budget should look like or can look like, please let them know that we are going to be starting to do those, and they will be on Zoom so people can watch them. People can email us, call us, and give us input about those as we go through that budget season. And then I think we're just, at this point, working around how to really balance the excitement of lowering numbers, increased vaccines, increased business travel, with also knowing that there's still risk out there and making sure that we're still being vigilant, that we're going to keep everybody in our community safe and healthy. So I think that's obviously a concern for all communities, but just really trying to welcome visitors and welcome our tourism, while also being really cautious about how our numbers can continue to go down and how our vaccinations can continue to go up, especially with school starting, some of the kids in the buildings a couple days a week. So that's what we have going on right now. And budget season is really going to be what's going to be at the focus for the next month or so.
That makes sense, Counselor. A question, with the Newburgh Police Chief search still ongoing, and Howie's question to Omar and Director Manfrin's comments about enhanced mental health services and crisis response, is there any discussion at the council about setting up any kind of alternative response network?
Good question. So we are actually in the final stages of having our consultant that is doing some of our DEI audit finishing up and going to be presenting to us coming soon. So I think there will be a lens for that. But also we have put out a survey to the community about what things they want to see in our newest police chief. So if you haven't seen that, certainly go look for that, because we're taking a lot of input from the community. And it sounds like our city manager will start working on some community members to sort of help drive that process and be part of that process. And so I suspect there will be a lot of conversation around that. And you're right, this is going to be a big hire for us. We have an acting police chief right now who I believe will be in the running for that. But we also went through a nationwide search to get candidates, and we are hoping to welcome whoever is going to be our long-term police chief right around the middle of the summer. And so all of that work is really ramping up right now. So those conversations are things that we're starting to really have now. And I suspect a lot of that will also be something that we talk about during this budget season. So it's sort of like dominoes falling. That conversation will happen around budget, and it will also happen around hiring. And so to get all of those pieces in place, it is something that we're definitely talking about and thinking about at the City of Newburgh.
Thank you for that very comprehensive answer. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot with it. Okay, great. Are there questions for Councilor Finley? All right, then I'm going to go to another first-timer here. Well, okay, Stephanie Finley isn't maybe a first-timer, but Heather Miller, on behalf of, or just as a member of the downtown business community, what would you like to share with people today and the folks on the call? And thanks for joining us and for your patience.
Yeah, of course. I was just going to share some updates from the Downtown Association and what events and programs that we are actually going to be able to put on this summer. So we did put on our farmers market last year, and we will continue to do that again. So that will start May 6th in the same location. Last year we expanded into the First Baptist parking lot, so we were able to space the booths 10 feet apart. We will continue with that model, and we are completely full for vendors, which is great. We will also be continuing our Double Up Food Buck program. So this is a program through the Oregon Farmers Market Fund that gives additional funds, dollar for dollar, up to $10 for anyone who's using their EBT card. So last year, we facilitated $15,000 in EBT transactions, and we got an additional $4,700 in Double Up Food Bucks. We're hoping this year will be about $6,000. The program works as you continue to do well and facilitate the program, you get more funds from the Oregon Farmers Market Fund. So we're hoping to expand that. We also were able to get an intern through First Federal this year, and the focus for that intern will be marketing that program and ensuring that all of those funds get utilized, because if we don't use them, they go back to the market fund. So it's a really easy, you bring your EBT card right to the information booth at the farmer's market. We give back coupons and tokens and handle all of the logistics. So a family can bring $10 and actually get $20 worth of produce. So if anyone has questions for that, you can contact the farmers market email at the MDA, but that's a great tool for everyone. And then our second big kind of announcement will be our second annual Dine Outside. So we will be closing down 3rd Street again. We are going to actually be doing it bigger and better. So we'll be expanding the season. Our plans will be to kick off Memorial Day weekend and go through September. We will also be expanding days in the months of July and August. So we'll, instead of closing down Friday evening, we'll actually be closing down Thursday evening. This is also to pull in regional visitors that come for the whole weekend. They can see the farmers market as well. And that will go for July and August. We are also expanding to include the block down to Galloway. We've actually added 4 new businesses in the last year on that block. So Chris James Cellars, which is open. Byerly Brewing is moving down that way. I think they've partially opened. Two Dogs Tap House opened last summer, and then Troon is going into the space that Buildable renovated, so the downstairs of that. So that block will be added on to the event, which will be really great. We've been working with Visit McMinnville to submit a grant to Travel Oregon to help us kind of improve the event with some lighting on the side streets and enhanced barricades that aren't just closed street signs, but a little more welcoming. So we're waiting to hear on that, but we were able to get a sponsorship thanks to our also new executive director of just about a year. This week, I think, is almost his 1-year anniversary from US Foods. So we reached out to our Rust Food and Beverage friends and said, hey, which of your wholesalers do you think would be willing to support this? Because if you guys aren't all here, then they're not going to have quite as much business either. So we are really excited about that. And then Visit McMinnville will, again, as they did last year, they're going to commit some marketing dollars to target regional exposure. So getting people in the region to come and visit. Yeah, I think that's all I have. As far as other events, we won't be holding our concerts on the plaza. We didn't hold them last year. They are usually on Thursdays, and we'll be pretty busy with Dine Outside. We are hoping that if we can provide some like street level music, that might be an opportunity as we get later into summer. We'll just have to look at what restrictions, not meant to be a concert, but more of just added ambiance, if you will. And then we are going to be partnering with the folks at Third on Third that put on their event that benefits the McMinnville Education Foundation, I believe I'm getting that right. So they're going to be bringing that back this year, which I think will be a really nice addition to the street closure. There'll be more things to see and do. And we are also in conversations with Cruising McMinnville to see how we can facilitate that event in conjunction with Dine Outside and not closing down our restaurants, but doing those things kind of hand in hand. And then UFO Festival is currently postponed to September, and I believe that they will be making their final decision as to go or no go in sometime in May. So we'll know for that event. And then Joya can speak to Turkey Rama. That's still in the holding pattern as well, I believe. But most of that, I think, will take place off of 3rd Street. And we would just encourage our downtown businesses to engage in turkey-themed specials and things to celebrate, but allowing them to stay open for their normal business as many days as possible for the summer is really our goal. And then the only other kind of cool thing that I was add for what we've accomplished this last year is we have hired a downtown caretaker. His name is Phil, and he does general pickup, leaf blowing, minor maintenance on our benches, things of that nature, and that's been a really great addition to downtown. So those are all the positive things from the MDA. We have heard lots of great feedback in regards to the Yamhill County grants that have allowed folks to plan for what is to come this summer. A lot of those folks were able to invest in additional outdoor seating, different things of that nature. And then the restaurant licensing has been really great, as well as businesses are trying to reopen. It's just another check that they don't have to write. So that was very much appreciated coming from our members. So I think that's all I have.
That's great. Thank you for lots of really exciting news. Are there questions for Heather? All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm very excited about all this. And then I want to make sure that we have time. Mayor Watkins, how are you for time? I think she said she's good. Oh. All right. I'm going to go to Abhisha Stone. Abhisha, what would you like to share with people today? And it seems perfect going off of the final comments about grant programs, because I know that's on your mind these days.
It sure is. Thanks for all those updates, Heather, too. That's really exciting. It's like the sun is shining and people are out doing things, and I couldn't be more excited. So I'll share some updates real quick. First of all, for those of you that are familiar with Denny Houle, who is our Regional Development Officer through Business Oregon. So Business Oregon, the state's Economic Development Department, we have a regional officer assigned to Marion, Polk, and Yamhill County. He is retiring, and tomorrow is essentially his last day of work. And we're sad to see him go, and also eager for what is in front of us, because Business Oregon has just announced that they that Denny's replacement will be Arthur Chaput, who comes to us from Business Oregon, and he was previously managing the Community Development Block Grant Program. I've had a chance to work with him just a little bit. He's a really sharp guy, very collaborative, communicates well, just has a lot of experience working for the state in this department, and I'm excited that he'll be joining us in just 2 weeks. He'll be in his position. So I think we'll have an opportunity for new conversations, engaging conversations as he comes up to speed. It's a great time for us to kind of wrestle through stuff that maybe has been sitting on our to-do list with the state for a while. So that's exciting. And then, yes, grants, right? Like, what is this next round? What is this funding that's coming from the feds, through the state, through the county? What are the impacts going to be of this money? And I am getting phone calls and emails on a daily basis of people saying, what's in front of us, Abhisha? What are the opportunities coming our way? And in response, mostly I'm saying, what do you need? What does your industry need? What do the communities need? Because right now is the time for building. So this afternoon, I have a call with, for example, we have a venture catalyst who works just with entrepreneurs in our region, who is an employee of Oregon Entrepreneurs Network. But again, he serves Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties. And we're going to be talking about, what do entrepreneurs need? What do entrepreneurs need this year? I shared with you all already when we were talking to Omar about the work that the EDAC did, the Economic Development Advisory Council, in putting together their recommendations. And the idea is that we're filtering all of these recommendations and all of these requests to the Board of Commissioners as they are doing the really good and difficult work of trying to create some priorities for the county. So I can't, I don't have my magic ball. It broke last year. So I don't, my crystal ball, I'm not quite sure exactly what it's going to, Joya has one. Thank goodness, somebody needs one. Joya, come over, bring it to my house. I really need it. There you go. So we'll see
behind that one.
Yeah, we'll see what those opportunities even allow us to consider, because we don't know the parameters of the funding that's coming our way. But I do want folks to know that we want input, we want engagement. And when I say we, I'm talking about SEDCOR and the county. So one of the roles of SEDCOR is to advise on grant programs, to help create and structure the grant programs and to help execute them. But it's through identifying what our businesses need most, that's what drives us to the type of grant programs that we develop. So if you have input, if you're getting feedback from your business partners, if you are a business partner, send it our way. And I'll end there.
Great, thank you, Abhisha. Regarding the asking what people need, recently I needed to get my own thoughts about how to spend this money wisely. I needed to get them in some coherent fashion. And so the first thing I wrote down was, we need to listen to people, right? Like, we need to ask them, but we need to ask everybody, and we also need to listen to everybody. And then the next one was, we need to work together. And that was, because there's, as you mentioned, trying to get like, okay, there's this funding stream and this funding stream, but this one's restricted and this one's less restricted. Like, we just need to work together.
And we want to make sure that we're leveraging all of the opportunities available to us. So, instead of the county saying, well, we have all this money, we're just going to put it into business grant programs, we might actually get funding from the state for business grant programs. And it would be wiser to put some of the county funding into other things like infrastructure, roads, or something like that, right? I'm just throwing examples out there. But we want to be wise. We want to be thoughtful. And the funding that we're receiving gives us more time to be thoughtful. So we would be remiss to not utilize that time. And when the EDAC was talking through what they thought the priorities were, I went in with my own ideas about what priorities should be. And some folks agreed with some of those. And then some folks brought ideas I hadn't really thought about, right? And so I have to let my preconceived notions go and hear what they have to say and try to figure out how would that work? And how does that create what we're trying to achieve? And there's many brilliant minds, right, in this world, and together we're stronger. So thank you for saying that, Commissioner. But this is not easy work to do, which is why it often doesn't get done, but it's necessary right now.
Well, thank you for that, Joy. I probably at some point should actually send what I wrote to you, which embarrassingly I haven't done yet. But thank you for getting us started on that process. And then, okay, I'm going to move us on. Are there questions for Abhisha or comments? All right, great. Thank you very much. And then Takesha Wydrow, you're still with us, and sometimes you have to slip away early. So what would you like to share with people from the West Valley?
Just really quick, we've got our big annual cleanup on April 24th we're doing registration from 8 to 9, and then it goes to about 11:30 noon, and we'll have some food after available. So we're partnering with Solve and Recology and the city and Chamber and Revitalization and Rotary. So a lot of the groups are coming together, and this will be kind of our big event of the year, because I don't know that we're going to be doing any other big kind of events, but this can be a family event, and it will be, fun and all that. And we're keeping all the COVID protocols. Solve's really great about giving lots of guidelines on that, but I've been promoting it. There should be some information about it going up in the bulletin relatively soon, but if anyone has any questions, they can just email me at Revitalize Sheridan, or they can send a message to that Facebook page or the Sheridan Chamber Facebook page, and I will get back to them. That's about all.
Awesome. So it's the email address, Revitalize Sheridan. Is it Revitalize Sheridan at something, or is it
at gmail.com? Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. I want to make sure people know. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you for organizing that. I realize it's not just you, but I do know that you play a very big role in it.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And then Mayor Watkins, are you able to unmute yourself, and what would you like to share with people? All right, Joya Goodrum, what would you like to share with us today? You just put some great stuff in the chat, but I want to make sure you get that out there. While we're all listening.
I mentioned, you and Abhisha were talking about what we could use the money for. How about jobs and training for displaced workers, and maybe even some people are homeless right now. Could we help them get wraparound services and what they need so that they can have a career, a lifelong, those kinds of things. Howie is gone, but I'd be really all over that. And I know our business community is desperately seeking employees. And Heather posted as well that that's what she's hearing from her businesses. And my chamber colleagues are hearing the same thing from all of their constituents as well. So I threw that in there. Maybe Yamhill County could come up with a model that we could then bring across our state. And wouldn't that be awesome? I could see us doing that. We've got really smart people here. We should be able to do that. Okay, on to what I have to talk about along with all of that. Heather mentioned Turkey Rama. It's in a holding. It's flying around our community. It's in a holding pattern. And we are not going to probably do a street fair, but we've got other things that we're looking at. So stay tuned. We're still waiting to hear, the state hasn't told us about large gatherings, and we're waiting to hear how that's going to go. So we're holding off on that. We are hosting a candidate forum for the McMinnville School District. There are 6 candidates on April 21st from 6 to 7:30. And so we'll send out information about that to our members. We thought it'd be really important to have those folks come and tell us what their vision is for the school district. And then I know you all know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The PPP deadline was extended. So it was supposed to be Monday. It's past a week ago Monday. That was the last day. And they've extended it, both the Senate and so all of Congress extended it to May 31st. So if people have not done their application for PPP, go right ahead and get that in there because you've got some time. And that's all I have because I've talked enough today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Joya. And now I'm reading a comment from Abhishek. So, Abhishek, would you actually mind just adding that comment? Because people in the community, when they watch, and there are people who watch every week, they probably want to know what Abhishek, her words.
Well, that's kind to say. I don't, maybe some of my words. So I was just relaying to Joya and to Heather that I appreciated their feedback about the downtown businesses and the retail businesses needing access to employees and also employee training programs. Those needs are very well documented in the recommendations that we currently have been tracking. That need is so wide felt, and it's a really interesting dilemma that we're in, that so many folks are without employment and businesses are desperately seeking employees. And so there's something missing there, right? It could be access to childcare, it could be access to affordable housing, it could be training, right? So people that are looking to change career paths and need some sort of training. And so I just wanted to say thank you. That's well captured, but in the work that SEDCOR does, we mostly focus on traded sector businesses. So I also shared my appreciation for being the voice of those businesses in our region. Homelessness, for all of kind of the reasons that have been shared today, and also around the employment opportunity point, is also a point that is well captured. So thank you so mumuch, ladies.
That's awesome. And I will try to do a follow-up with Kim, the director of the Willamette Workforce Partnership, because she gets federal dollars to do workforce training, skills building, that kind of thing. So we clearly need to connect her with Joya and Heather. And that way we can save the federal funds for something else, or leverage it, as she says. I learned the phrase leverage from Abhishek.
I'd like to share real quick, I'm sorry, and I don't remember Councillor Findlay sharing this. We may have talked about it last week, but the City of Newburgh is currently partnering with Willamette Workforce Partnership on a workforce skills development program for youth called the Sidewalk Program. Right. So this is a program that teaches youth how to do concrete work. And also while they're doing that, helps to replace defunct and broken and dangerous sidewalks in the residential communities. So the City Council decided that they wanted to partner with this program. They wanted to welcome this opportunity for youth workforce training and also support their residential communities through this really valuable effort. These are the types of programs that are spinning up very actively right now. We've been talking about the potential for the sidewalk project for about 2 years. It is now up and running, and this is only one really actually quite small example of the work that Willamette Workforce Partnership does in partnership with SEDCOR and our local municipalities. But these are the types of things that are possible, right? And so we need to think about creative opportunities for solutions for engaging folks in workforce development. And I just wanted to give Newburgh a shout out for taking advantage of that opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you I just saw that program, so I'm very excited about it. And I do like to note that it was last week or a previous week that Abhishek put our current situation in Yamhill County into the context of the reduction in logging on federal lands in the early 1990s, and I don't know if these were the words that Abishai used, but the failure to really like hold up and redevelop and retrain workforces in communities throughout the Coast Range. And I want to make sure that while we're here, that we get the opportunity to do it better, right? So just putting it in the context. Mayor Watkins has her mic unmuted.
Oh, it's that I am not a tech person. I just shouldn't be allowed near them. But thank you. Abishai, I would love to talk to you about the sidewalk program at some point here, because one thing Carlton needs are sidewalks. And so it would be really great. I would like to find out a little bit more about it and how we can maybe plug in on some of that. Other than that, Commissioner Kula, I want to thank you. And after our last meeting, I contacted my city manager and said, so how are we going on the pool? And with the downgrade, or the downgrade or upgrade, depending on which way you look at it, of Yamhill County, we're hoping they're checking in with the insurance carrier. They're watching the guidelines very carefully. If the stars remain in alignment as they are now, we're hoping that we will be able to open the pool this summer. Not with the pool passes and the free opening that we've always had before, but at least there will be some chance to open and give some more, limited swimming opportunities, which we're really grateful for. And I think a lot of the parents are too. So yes. we're moving in that direction where we just have to keep our fingers crossed that all of Yamhill County keeps the COVID numbers down so we can stay in the classification that we're in and get it open. Other than that, we're on countdown. April the 4th, our new city manager is here. So yeah, we're just kind of counting the days and holding our breath on that one. Lots of stuff going on. All of it's, pretty much what we've been doing. 5G, we've had a joint meeting with the council and our planning commission on 5G network regulation. What was more remarkable about that for me was not even what we were talking about so much, was that we had a work session with our planning commission, which had all of our planning commissioners there and a full slate of planning commissioners, and the same for our city council. And it has been a long, long time since we had a full slate of planning commissioners, which is why we've ended up with some of the other problems that we ended up with. But it was just nice to have this group of people asking questions, talking, researching. We have a wonderfully active and intelligent and questioning city council and group of commissioners, or group of planning commissioners. And the meeting went over time because everybody was busy talking, and it was just a really wonderful thing to feel and see. So we're moving ahead on our infrastructure, I think, as far as our management in the city goes, and that's something that we've been lacking for a while. Other than that, I'm just going to shut up because it's getting kind of late, and I know people have been very patient and hanging in there. So I want to let you go and go back to it. So thank you very much, and thanks again.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to make sure that Joya Goodrum, no, not Abishai again. Joya, what would you like to share with people today?
I'm good.
You already did. Clearly, my checks.
Did we lose Amity?
Besides your names, totally missed it.
It's okay. City of Amity's still here.
Oh, yes, that's right. I'm not sure if Mike Thomas wants to give an update from the city of Amity, but I would certainly welcome it.
If you can hear me, no, I don't have any particular updates. We will have I guess I will say we will have a new permanent mayor come April 7th. For those of you who aren't aware, Mayor Cape retired. We elected a gentleman by the name of Joshua Clark, who lasted 2 months and then resigned for personal reasons, potentially health reasons. And we've been working on a, what do you call it, a pro tem mayor. So we'll get our new mayor here soon. We also just hired a new city clerk. So Chrissy Worthington is now our city clerk, which has been pretty cool. So we're training her up, and we're excited to have her on board. So things are kind of humming along here. We're in good shape, but it's been good hearing all of you and seeing all your faces. And I'm going to go quiet again.
But I have one question then for you, which is, how's your water system doing these days? And what are the next steps?
So the water system, that's a great and detailed question. Currently it's operating. We do have power to it. It is in good shape. We finished 2/3 of the Pulverall project. Our problem is right now, and I've been in conversations with Al Bannon and Merkley's person, I can't remember her name, discussing the how we get the rest of the program done. We are stuck on an environmental assessment with the Grand Ron tribes and the other tribal things, tribal nations, regarding the sign off on a memorandum of agreement of how to mitigate the potential damages due to the finding of artifacts. And that has tripped us up now for about 6 months. And until we can get that signed off and approved through USDA, our project's stuck. So this goes back to the initial thing, because part of the one of the fixes in that project is to install alternative power sources and a generator to keep us going in a situation that happened like last month. So until that gets fixed or resolved, we will continue to have to, quote, hillbilly rig our system with a generator if necessary, because we just don't have it. So that's where we are now. So we have USDA working on it. We have Senator Merkley's office and Congresswoman Bonamici's office all helping us out, trying to get this memorandum of agreement signed off. And then once that's done, we're off to the races. But till then, we're kind of stuck. So, but we do have water in the city, and that's all that matters.
That's good. And I want to say that I've never seen somebody communicate so fully with the people in your community as during that water crisis. It's just like, kudos. It was really remarkable to me to see your level of communication with people.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of me communicating, but I was able to communicate because I had a really good team doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, so I could put the message out. So it was a great team effort, and we survived. I will shout out their names multiple times, but Wendy Valiz at PGE, you, Commissioner, thank you. You did a lot of work behind the scenes with us as well. We also got a lot of help from Willamina, Dayton, D&D Electric, and a couple other entities which are slipping my mind right now. But it was a lot of people came to our rescue, and we greatly appreciated all of it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now I'll go quiet.
All right, are there any last thoughts? We've managed to do our longest one yet, but there was some great information. So, all right, well, thank you all for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and what's happening in your communities. And we will see you next week. And in the meantime, we're going to be working on how to use that money well that's coming from the federal government to help all of you. All right, we will see you next week.